Okay, here we are. I'm actually I sandblasted the front body mounts and the replacement drive shaft tunnel. So I blasted those and I taped off the plug holes, drills and punches so I can plug weld those. But I paint the bottom side before they're welded. So the drive shaft tunnel, sandblasted that. It took like 2 3 minutes. I mean, I have a pressure pot, so that's just outside, not on camera. Just blasted the front body mounts and that the white drive shaft tunnel. So I decided to actually speed this clip up 1.5 speed, just because I actually attempt this triangle fill section 3 times, and the first two didn't work. So I'm just speeding up through this. I'm showing you anyway, just because not everything works. I had measured it. I thought it was about 2.25 inches from end to end, and I bend a piece and shrink it, stretch it, to get that nice S curve in the back. And didn't quite work out, so I ended up doing it again and making it more narrow at 2 inches, tapered down to like 1.5 inches toward the front, and again that didn't work. So I said, screw it, let's just go ahead and get the drive shaft cover in and then worry about it later. So yes, so I've actually sped this one clip up, just because I attempted something twice, it still didn't work, but you can still see me shrinking, stretching, hammering, cutting, trimming. I just wasn't satisfied. I'm glad it didn't work, and I didn't force it to work. I was just be patient and went on to the next step, and the outcome in the end was amazing. I mean, it fit perfectly. Um, and the method that I use tape, which I've used before. Actually, the very first video, you can see me use tape. Tape has a little bit of stretch, and you can mark it, cut it, peel it off, cut the shape that you want where you've marked it. Even if it's a compound, complex curve shape, you can flatten it back on a piece of sheet metal, cut it out. Alright, so here I'm comparing the drive shaft tunnel. So I've got it in place, forward and back, and I think I've got it back about 1/4 inch more, just to give me a little bit more room for the drive shaft bolts. And marked the bottom, and I cut through both sides, top and bottom, so I can give a nice, perfect seam weld. So it'll be a butt weld and not an overlap weld. That's one of the main reasons I'm redoing all of this work, because I don't like seeing any major work or repairs or patches on the cars on the lift. I like to see a nice clean sheet metal with the stampings and everything without seeing rust holes filled and stuff. I mean, people cover that stuff in bodywork and filler, but I'm totally not doing that. I may put a little skim coat just over the welds just a bit, but I'm not covering lap welds with seam sealer or body filler, not externally. I obviously do lap welds internally when it's structural. It gives me more material, gives me more strength. I can weld on both sides. Obviously, the carpet's going to be covering the inside. I may do a skim coat just to seal it, but yeah, so here I'm actually doing butt welds here. Obviously, the car now is actually flipped over upside down. That's going to be in my next video, which I will edit next and post probably the next day. And then once I add a little bit of extra welds from the inside, the car will be flipped back over a little bit more tidying, a little bit more grinding. Doubt I'll do any more welding, and then I'll probably clean the rear fender wells, prep it, tape it off, and paint it. So I will probably paint the whole bottom next. Obviously, the next video. I haven't decided if I'm going to do the frame next. I may actually do them both at the same time, but then again, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So you're just going to have to wait and watch because I don't know either. Alright, so here, Driveshaft tunnel is going in. It's butt welded. The side I'm welding on now is a little bit more hassle. I just had to push on it a bit more to get that gap to close up and then weld it up. And then the right camera side worked out really well. So that lined up really well. Butt welds. Alright, so most of that's all welded, and now I'm going in and cleaning and prepping for the front body mounts. Not much to say, it's just welding those plug holes on those body mounts. I forgot to get a close-up. Forgot to take a picture of the close-up of the body mount that I had to trim. So there was a lip that I had to cut off on the back side. But I ended up just basically welding the edge to the sheet metal, which worked out fine. It's just less of a trap for dirt and debris, so it's perfectly functional. Looks good. Unless you actually knew what you're looking at, you wouldn't even notice that I changed that. Alright, a little bit more grinding. Okay, here we're on another clip. So this clip is normal time-lapse speed, not sped up. A little bit more prep work, and then I'm about to attempt the second attempt on one side for that hole, and it's not a very good angle from here. So here I attempt another fill panel with the stretcher shrinker, and again, this second attempt doesn't work. I canceled this, and then I ended up just doing a taped fill panel. So this is actually my second narration. The first narration I had actually, I'm recording with my phone, and I had my phone on the laptop, but the microphone was picking up the fan on the laptop. So all you heard was the fan noise and me in the background. So hopefully this will sound a little bit better. Again, I'm not a video editor. I'm just throwing this up with my free time in Atlanta, in the city with my wife. Alright, so again, shrinking, stretching this panel, this fill piece, it just didn't work. I keep trimming it, thinking I can weld it and weld it. I mean, obviously I can cut 1,000 pieces and weld them, and I don't want to do that. You can make origami out of 20 sheets of paper if you want, but the goal of origami is to make it from one piece. Alright, here we go. Here's the tape method. Project Binky, and a lot of people in many shops use CAD, which is Cardboard Aided Design. I mostly use poster board. I don't do a lot of three-dimensional stuff. A lot of it's just flat, so poster board works. Um, but TAD, tape aided design, is something that I came up with. I'm sure other people do it, but I didn't learn it from anyone. Masking tape has stretch, has give, so I'm just cleaning and masking tape exactly what needs to be made, obviously larger. And you can actually see another example of this in my very first video when I use masking tape and I traced a line of a compound curve. So here I put the tape over the hole and then I spray paint the inside and then peel it off, and you can see exactly the shape that I need. And then I cut it out, and then I transfer that to sheet metal. I obviously have a lot of offcut sheet metal, so sometimes you'll see me trying to fit the best, because I don't want to waste a whole large sheet of sheet metal, 4x8 or 4x4 piece of sheet metal for one little piece. So sometimes I dig through my offcuts to see what's the best piece to use. Alright, so I trace the TAD pattern to the sheet metal, cut it out. Obviously, make it a little larger. I could have just done a perfect trace and it would have fit, I think. But again, you got to be patient. Hopefully you're not picking up that fan in the background. Obviously this gets warm when I'm processing video. Right, so here, obviously I'm butt welding as well. It's a perfect fit for the hole, so it's going to fall through. So I actually use my stud welder. Obviously I've got one. Studs are cheap. I got a box of studs and I weld a stud to it, so it gives me something to hold on to as I'm fitting it in the hole. You can do other methods. You can use a piece of sheet metal and just tack it, and it gives you something to hold on to, or you can even use a sheet metal screw. You can just run a sheet metal screw. You can hold it with pliers. There's the stud. And obviously with a stud you can just cut it off and grind it. With a sheet metal screw you got a hole, which is still easy to fill on a brand new sheet of 18 gauge. Shouldn't be an issue. Right, so tack the edge and just follow it around and just tack weld that butt weld. And then later on I will actually plug weld some drilled spot welds for that last rear lip. But I'm just getting in place for the moment. Hammering the inside, the outside. I will obviously weld and grind on the bottom, and then when the car's flipped over, go back and see if there's any gaps. That's what lights are good for. I'll just put a light underneath the car, and if I see little pinholes, then I know where I need to weld. Alright, here's a good angle for the other side. Little cleanup. A bit more trimming. Obviously I made it too big. So if you guys want a Q&A video, let me know. If you have any questions, you can even email me or just put it in the comments. I'm getting close to paint after this. I've got one more video after this. I will post probably the next day or two after this one goes online. I'm doing the rear valance and the rear fender lower repair. And that will basically cover 99% of all the welding on the car. I was hoping to get all of the welding done, but I got a little behind with some phone calls and some other work that I didn't get it flipped over in time to weld the cross members in. So the cross members will be next. So once the cross members are in next, obviously it'll be tidying and grinding, and then I'll be basically done with welding unless I find something that I didn't notice. Obviously the bonnet's ready to go. Frame, I don't think I need to do any more welding on the frame. The trunk lid may need a little bit of... I've got 3 different trunk lids. I think I've got a Mark 1, a Mark 2, and a Mark 3 trunk lid to work on. They're all the same except for the stamp for the Mark II and Mark III badge. The problem is that my original trunk lid, I believe I sandblasted it too many times myself. I had it professionally done once, and then I did it once, and it's warped, and that's totally my bad. So I'm not going to use my original Mark 1. It's not bad. It's not horribly bad, but I could probably repair it. But I've got a perfectly good condition Mark II and a perfectly good condition Mark III trunk lid. So the only welding I'll need to do on that is to fill the mark holes for the badges, but they're rust free and straight, besides being the wrong color. I've got a white one and a brown one, which came off the same car from the Mark III bonnet. The white car is also contributed with the Driveshaft tunnel. Right here you can see I drilled and I'm plug welding for that last seam. A little bit of cleaning up. I may put a skim coat just over those welds. But then again, that's just, butt welds, not lap welds. I want it to be as seamless as possible. That's the whole reason of doing this. Just when the car was on the rack, on the car lift, I saw the little patches and welds, and it really bothered me. It was just really disgusting to see the old work that I did. It was solid and rust free, but visually is what bugged me. And that's the bottom of the car. If I'm that picky with the bottom of the car, I mean, just imagine how picky I'm going to be on the top side. This is why I mocked up and test fitted the bonnet vents. I did all of that before jumping into this. Right, so this little corner here is a little bit of a gap, and it didn't match the other side, so I made a little fill piece. So I'm just filling in that little piece in the corner, and then finishing the plug welds for the new fender for the driver's side. Obviously, it's gravity is the law. Molten metal welds flow down easier than up. So, granted, it's tack weld when I welded it upside down, but if I can get away with welding down than upside down, I'll take that route. It's pretty difficult to weld upside down, especially thick stuff. Thin stuff's not too bad, but when I'm repairing TR6 frames and they're differential pins that always fail. Welding upside down is not the funnest thing to do. It can get dangerous. Alright, so I'm pretty much done with this video. Playing around with that seam cover. Just addressing that last seam. Alright, so thanks for watching. I will hopefully do the next narration and post the next video the day or two after this. Thanks.